Historically, the border's been pretty closed, and
Right.
it's been very difficult for Argentinians to buy cross-border.
Right.
But what you're talking about is drastically changing that.
Yes, absolutely. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Decoding Cross-Border Ecommerce podcast. Today, Aaron, we have a couple guests.
We do. Special guests.
Guests. Both know things about Argentina. How would you describe these two individuals?
Well, if I had to describe two of them, and we'll let them describe themselves a little bit, but we've got Ryan Swap here, which is our head of global trade data. He's deep in the weeds of the data and calculating and how to calculate landed cost, etc. So all of the technical things that we need to do to be able to calculate duty and tax going into Argentina here, he's our guy. And then we've got world traveler expert over here, Hannah.
I would have said know it all, but okay.
And she knows everything
about
not
Argentina.
about Argentina. She's she's rattling off stuff from Argentina that only one would know that visits there
Or runs marathons there.
regularly runs marathons there. I mean, she goes there at least every year.
At least.
And so tell us a little bit about your affinity with Argentina, when that began, and kind of your background with the country.
So I'm really here because I love Argentina. And if I hear Argentina, I want to talk about it for days. Because back in my college days, we're going way back at this point, I studied Latin American politics and economics and studied in Buenos Aires 6 months after they unpegged from the dollar during a very interesting economic and political time. And ever since then, I've gone back at least once, twice a year. I love it.
That's awesome.
Amazing food, amazing skiing. It's a great place.
I think we're going to have some relevant discussions here.
We are. This is going to be good.
Jinx.
Okay.
Let's get to it.
All right. Well, things have been changing in Argentina, right? Have a new president down there that's been it's crazy hairstyle. Now, the thing about his hair, though, do you know what they call it? Because it's going to last forever. So you know what they call his hairstyle?
I don't know. I just think of Austin Powers whenever
and because it's going to last forever, it's called a permanent hairstyle.
That was good.
Okay.
We need the ba.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Anybody know anything about the size of this place?
As far as like population or
sure.
their economy?
Tell us all about it.
Well, it's obviously a country in South America. They have from an economic standpoint, their GDP is about 100 trillion Argentine pesos, which is about $640 billion. They're the 25th largest economy in the world. And if it was a state, it would rank at number 15. Just to give us some scale.
Yeah. A little history on this. So on the GDP, when I've looked at numbers prior to the last year or so, it was actually quite a bit larger, right? So it's actually shrinking. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But it's physically massive. It's like it would be like Alaska and like Texas combined.
Yeah.
Would be the 8th largest landmass, I think.
Wow. Well, they're the third largest economy in Latin America, next to Brazil and Mexico. There's about 46 million people. They have a high internet usage. About 59% shop online, and they're expecting that to increase by 20% over the next 5 years. So, it's one of the things that's Mercado Libre is a big marketplace down there, and apparently they're also a payment system as well. It sounds like.
Yeah, you basically use Mercado Libre for everything. If you are shopping online, you can purchase things from the marketplace. If you are at a grocery store, convenience store, a restaurant, you pay with Mercado Libre.
Yeah. So a quick question, Clint, I don't know. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Did we look up where this ranks in our customers' list of countries?
I did not. I could figure it out.
Do we want
I might
to?
I'll look it up in just a second. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll do it. Hey, but Mercado Libre, I'll look that up in a minute. Do you know where it was founded? Argentina.
Oh.
And it's used all over South America, isn't it? My understanding is it was actually, you mentioned it in the Mexico podcast.
Yeah, no, I think it's
Mercado
all
Libre is
over.
huge.
It's
Brazil,
all over Latin America, right?
All over Latin America. Yeah, Mexico. Yeah, no, it's massive. Well, you can ask some more questions while I'm looking up the.
I didn't know if we wanted to pause or
Oh,
I would imagine it's low on the list. You don't see a lot of orders going to Argentina, and I think it's because they have pretty high VAT rates.
Mhm.
Their de minimis historically has been really low, and
yeah. In fact, this
Inflation's
number will
high.
give us some context. I think to the rest of the discussion is it's such a large country. It is a big economy, but how successful is it for merchants selling cross-border into there? And I think knowing kind of historically where it's been is interesting to anchor on. And then as we start talking to what does the outlook look like moving forward? Because I don't think those are the same answer.
Mhm.
So should we
they
take
have
a
nowhere
guess?
to go but up.
Should we take a
Yeah, you
guess?
should take a guess.
I'm going to guess 87th.
50.
I think it's pretty low. How many are there?
It's like 200.
I think closer to 100.
78.
Oh.
Do I win anything?
No. But they do have nowhere to go but up because that's not very high.
Yeah.
And but I think that now we could have talked about 78 other countries, but I think it's relevant right now because a lot of the changes that are going on there, a lot of things about tariffs. So I'm excited to dive into that.
Yeah. So right now we're talking, if you're selling cross-border, across all of our customers, 78th on the list is pretty minor, not the most critical country to sell into, but things are changing down there from what I understand. Is that right?
Right. To go into a little bit more detail, to kind of paint the landscape of where we've been, I want you to think of something. Here in the U.S., we've all experienced some pretty high inflation, at least as far as we're concerned, and that's been pretty painful. And our inflation rate reached a high of about 9.1% in July of 2022. Theirs recently has been over 200%. So just imagine how painful that is for them. And I think that, among other reasons, led to the election of Javier. And he's making some pretty big changes there that, quite honestly, I think the result of these changes is unknown. But really, as you mentioned, Clint, they have nowhere to go but up. They've been so bad that I think a lot of these changes have a chance to really make a difference. And one of those changes is they just recently announced that they are going to be increasing the duty de minimis to 400 USD.
What's it been at?
It's been at 0.
I think for postal shipments it was 50,
Right.
but 0 for courier shipments, right?
Yep. Yeah, and they have a really weird their duty and tax structure on postal shipments is really kind of complicated. I was speaking to Aaron about it yesterday, actually, but they have some limitations on the number of imports per year. They have some weight limits. One of the other changes that they made is that they're increasing the limit on a per package basis to $3,000 instead of $1,000. So you can
get a personal import now that's
up to 3,000.
Up to 3,000, more simplified clearance.
Right.
So it sounds like historically the border's been pretty closed, and
Right.
it's been very difficult for Argentinians to buy cross-border.
Right.
But what you're talking about is drastically changing that.
Yes, absolutely. So just to read some of these, because this is actually a question I had, is what advantage does that give Argentina to open up their economy? And the aim is to make foreign products more accessible to Argentine consumers. The government believes this will increase competition and lower prices, especially in the technology and textile sectors. It also seeks to eliminate the need for Argentines to travel abroad for cheaper goods, which Hannah can speak to. And the policy is part of a broader strategy to normalize Argentina's foreign trade. And because the country has been considered the third most closed economy in the world.
Which probably is why it was ranked 78th, right?
Yeah.
But now they're radically changing that.
Yeah. So the reform represents a significant departure from previous protectionist policies. And they believe that the power of free markets will drive economic growth. So,
yeah, I mean, I think one thing too to remember is people in Argentina, like even going back to the first time I was there, have a memory and experience in having very strong purchasing power outside of Argentina because they were tied to the dollar for so long. And so that really increased their ability to travel and while traveling to purchase things internationally because this was kind of pre-e-commerce, pre-high usage of the internet. So once they kind of unpegged from the dollar and had more control over their own economic destiny, so to say, could participate more competitively with Brazil and other Mercosur countries, that also had a hit to Argentinians themselves. But they still were very well off economically compared to the rest of Latin America. Now, they love to travel. They do love to buy things internationally, but it has always been very reliant upon physically going to another country and doing so. So there's been a pretty decent stratification between who participates, I would say, in international commerce and who doesn't. And so what's interesting now is that this really opens up the floodgates for other people to participate outside of like Mercado Libre or very specific goods that they've been able to get, which I think will be an interesting experience for them all.
Historically, what's kind of the buying behavior been, domestically? Because you visit there all the time. You have friends there.
Yep.
And what would they always have you bring with them, and why?
So whenever I go to Argentina, I FaceTime from a large big box store in the United States with my friend in Argentina, and I walk around looking at shelves, and he points to all the things that he wants. Things like dishwasher soap and face wash and trash bags. And I check luggage specifically full of just very cheap things that are hard to get down there, impossible to get, or are just really expensive and overpriced. So we're not talking like Apple phones and things like that. It's like very basic home goods.
It's interesting because Javier Milei was talking. He was on a podcast with Lex Friedman, and I was listening to it, and it was translating, and it was, had AI doing it in English. But anyway, one of the challenges he said that he had is some goods would look cheap, but he said, but it wasn't. What good is it if you can't find the good, right? Like, sure, it's only this price, but you can't find it anywhere. And so in some of the numbers and stuff, it's like, it looks worse because we're actually, bringing in, more goods are for sale. And so, the price looks like it's gone up, but it's actually available to buy. So it's just an interesting dynamic.
Well, and then it's also the question of how much you're going to pay day to day, minute to minute, the various FX rates that they actually utilize down there. Like when we have inflation, which is in quotes because in comparison to Latin America, it doesn't exist. Right. We at least still know what we're getting for a dollar and what the exchange rate is. Down there, it's been wildly unpredictable, depending on the method that you pay.
You mentioned going to a restaurant there is interesting. Tell us about that.
So, just because of the wild unpredictability of the peso in particular, prices are handwritten on stickers, put on menus, and whether you pay in pesos, in USD cash, or on a credit card, you can get very different rates. So it's been really hard, I think, for locals because if you get paid in pesos, it's go spend your paycheck now and go to a restaurant and just live your life because you don't know what it's going to be worth tomorrow. Whereas if you're paid in dollars, which is the desired currency down there, then you can actually save money.
And the restaurants are constantly changing the price.
Correct.
Almost daily, right?
Yep. Yeah. Last year when we went, you get a stack 2 inches high that was $100. Then once you add zeros to the currency, you can get a smaller stack of cash. Is basically the conversion rate there.
Wild.
I am curious about they use cash a lot down there, right?
Correct.
And we were talking about that the exchange from the pesos to the dollar. There's there's more than one market, more than one way to do that. So you got kind of the black market exchange rate, and then you got the official exchange rate.
It's a blue market.
Okay, we'll call it blue. But it's very cash based,
Yes.
and everybody's trying to get the dollars to pay because that's more stable than the pesos.
Right.
And the blue market rate is actually a better rate than the official rate.
If you are buying pesos, it's a much higher exchange rate than if you are buying dollars. So if you go to a bank and you exchange, you're going to get a very low exchange rate. If you go on the blue market, which is really going down the street for the most part, then you can get, I mean, last summer it was almost double the number of pesos for $1. Now it's much closer because of, I think, some of the economic changes that they've gone through and some of the stability that's been introduced. So, it is trying to get away from that dueling FX rates and dueling markets and things like that to just, again, kind of create greater predictability and encourage people to kind of save pesos, use pesos, actually participate in the economy.
So historically, if I was visiting there, which I've never done before, but I kind of want to, going and just exchanging, using my dollars is going to be a lot better if I'm visiting from the US, right? And so paying with cash is the preferred route. But it sounds like things have changed a little bit with the credit card companies. They're changing their approach to get competitive because nobody's using them because their exchange rates are terrible, right? So how are they kind of combating this environment?
Right. So I think this is where there is such high potential with Argentina in international markets, meaning shopping, purchasing powers, things like that, and both locally within South America as well as internationally. And, they did used to use credit cards a lot more. They do love Mercado Libre. But initially, when the peso started to devalue significantly recently, credit card companies like your Amex, your Visa didn't respond as quickly. So you were still getting pretty close to the bank rate as an FX on between any other currency. Now they have more of a calibration correction. So if you use your card in country, so if I go down there and my home currency is the US dollar, I can pay for anything. I initially get just that basic bank rate in my exchange. When I come home about 2 weeks later, I get a whole slew of refunds because they have changed the rates down to closer to the blue rate so that you don't lose as much using a credit card.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wait, when you are buying in Argentina, typically is the VAT included in the product price?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when you're selling online, be thinking about that when you want a VAT inclusive price. That's what they're used to seeing. So if you're a retailer selling there, inclusive pricing is the way to go.
So and when it comes to people in Argentina buying online, I assume they have credit cards then. Is that the preferred payment method for them if they're going to buy online, even though they might use cash, domestically?
Yes, I would say so. Though Mercado Libre, honestly, everyone uses that for everything now.
For their payment?
Yeah. Though you do see, you do need to use credit cards, which again is why if you are a credit card provider, you're going to find a way to cater to those customers. Because again, there are a lot of people who are very savvy shoppers, who are very savvy purchasers, who want to be buying goods from all over the world. And at a certain point, it's like, well, it's cheaper for me to fly to Miami and buy things in person than it is for me to go online, pay a different FX rate, go through all of these hoops just to get the same goods I could get if I just got a flight. So I think ideally that's part of what these moves are, is to bring that same purchasing in country. And yes, people are still going to travel. People are still going to go places, but it's not as much a commercial transaction, I guess.
Mm-hmm. One of the things in Brazil is they always ask for your CPF number, right? So we collect that at checkout. In Argentina, I think they have a CUIT number. Is that usually asked for when you're making purchases, or are they asking to track for those IDs? Because I think it's required on the paperwork. They're probably contacting the consignee to get it. Because how else? Because they do need to track, like we were saying, was it 12 imports a month or something, or
a year,
whatever. Yeah. I think they're using that identification number. So if you are selling to Argentina, collecting that ID and getting it on the paperwork is going to help streamline the delivery.
Now, you had a funny story about an airport experience that I thought would be funny to share.
I do love my border crossing. No, so this past time when I was flying in with my duffel bag full of goods from the US, they stopped me because there was something kind of sketchy looking on the x-ray. And I was trying to explain to them that what a dishwasher pod was, because I assumed like, obviously that's the issue, or these like this like box of little packets of powder. But they actually thought I was bringing in a whole bunch of pamphlets because they saw the trash bags rolled up. And so they were really worried about what I was bringing in as far as like brochures or pamphlets of some sort into the country. And then I had to explain why I was bringing trash bags.
Did they give you a hard time though for bringing in the trash bags?
They were a little confused. They were less confused than I thought they would be, which is probably an indication of kind of what they see coming through there.
Yeah. Like, oh, that makes sense.
But yeah, they're just like, oh, all right, sounds good. Move along.
I wish somebody was bringing that, to me.
Exactly.
So as we kind of look to this closed economy of the past, super volatile currency, high inflation rates. There's a few things kind of happening that are now opening the economy. I think it would be good to summarize those of how Argentina is really going to become a much higher country for most sellers than it is today. Maybe we should just do a quick checklist of those things, of things that are opening up the country for cross-border selling, and why maybe in the past, if it hasn't been a priority for you as an e-commerce seller, why it might be something you should start targeting this next year and put it on your list.
Well, I think the main thing is the lowering of the de minimis. 400
raising? You mean lowering?
Yeah, raising the de minimis.
And it's the duty de minimis that's getting raised, right? The VAT de minimis, which is VAT's at 21%. You're going to get that, but that's a comparable VAT to Europe, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, and the other thing too that we didn't really talk about is Javier's just deregulating a ton of stuff. They actually have a deregulation ministry, which sounds interesting, and
it's like Doge in the US.
Yeah,
actually, I think Doge was modeled after that ministry.
And I however, I think that they have a little more flexibility to actually implement those changes in Argentina than here. However, it's an interesting concept that they're just going in and they're canceling between 1 and 5 regulations per day, and there's a huge backlog of like 3,000 that they're looking at getting rid of as well. And so their hope is to just make their economy more free and give people more access to goods from all over the world. And by doing so, it'll lower prices and make everything more affordable domestically as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that the de minimis is the biggest change that's happening. I know that he wants to lower tariffs. I don't know all the details around the tariff rates. Right. So even if you go over 400, but for the most part, that 400 is pretty high. I mean, we've done de minimis podcasts on de minimis. They're probably going to be in the top 5.
Yeah, most countries are lowering de minimis.
Yeah, I bet they're going to be in the top 5 countries in terms of a generous de minimis. So I think it's a great time to invest in Argentina. It's a great time to sell to Argentina. So
it's a great time to go to Argentina.
Yeah. You've been saying that for every year. So no, thanks our resident know-it-all and resident data person that pretends he knows it all. But no, this was a lot of fun.